was in information security team in the ILO, I was also involved in awareness raising. So there was a very convenient acronym, which is CIA is about important aspects of information security, which is C is confidentiality, I is integrity, and A is availability. So for information, it's the balance between these three aspects are very important. So yes, to answer Dr. Wan's question, there is definitely a trade-off between, if you make this information system more and more available, then confidentiality might be compromised. So there's always a balance. If you make the security strict, more strict and stricter, and that means no one can access it. So there's no availability. So there's no value in its information system, even if it's the most secure system in the world. So the user awareness is very important. We often say security is not complete without you. So U is like alphabet, U in the security, but it also means security engineers cannot do all the jobs. It's also every user has a part to play.
My favorite function of Excel right now would have to be XLOOKUP. It gives me a lot more freedom where I don't have to have the columns in such a, because with VLOOKUP, the columns have to be in a certain order for the function to work. Whereas XLOOKUP gives you a lot more freedom. To give you an idea of how that's used. So when I do a system upgrade, one of the checks that I do is I download a log before the upgrade and I download a log after the upgrade. These logs are huge. I'm talking about at least 200,000 rows with hundreds of columns. And then the question that I have to answer is, did anything change? And I have to answer that question probably within 45 minutes. Historically, I've had to answer that question at 3 or 4 a.m. after a very long day. So you obviously can't eyeball that, right? It's just impossible. And so you would have to be using an XLOOKUP function with a little bit more logic to determine whether or not things have changed. You can't assume, for example, the rows are going to be the same before an upgrade and after an upgrade, because, for example, the systems could still have been processing some change to the database. And as a result, there could be some changes, but you have to ensure that you're using those lookup functions you're comparing apples to apples, essentially.
So what aspects of Agile were useful in this project? So hopefully some of the things that we heard are that being able to break things down into small chunks, always going to be useful. And being able to get feedback quickly was also a really key part of making this project successful. And I'd say that like the larger a project gets, the harder it can be to progressively build something. There's a lot more places for complexity to creep in and overtake the timelines of your project. And I think the chart we saw where that in the waterfall, the risk goes way up at the end. You definitely don't want to be in a project that's a death march. And so making all the work smaller, bite-sized is definitely a way to de-risk your project.
With the MVP, some of those really complicated projects, which, let's face it, customers always come up with this, fly me to the moon. If we don't hit the moon, we can go to Mars and Saturn. Breaking them down, actually, almost starting an agile project in a waterfall sense, sometimes actually pays off a lot of dividends, because you can actually say, look, what is it really what you want? And you wind up with this core of really the satisfied thing. And you approach it very much in a waterfall manner. You've done all this data gathering, requirements analysis, all this stuff very much in a waterfall manner. But what it does is cast off all this fluff on the side, and you end up with this core project, which you can say, right, now I can do that. And guess what? I can, 20 odd cycles, 20 odd sprints a year, and then they start realizing, oh, look, can I add on these things? You go, yeah, we can. However, you do know you're adding to the project.
And I think it's not just about agile, it's basically about any project that you're involved with, whether you're a teammate or you're managing this. The key thing is buying, and the key thing is expectation, and also how do you measure success. A lot of time I need to get information from this from the very beginning, because everybody may, if we don't, if this is not transparent about how do you measure success, then everybody has their own different ideas in their head. So I'll give you an example. When I was working at the ad agency, so there was a small company, and then we helped them create an ad that all of a sudden overnight they become a name, a well-known sensation, because everybody loved that commercial. However, within just a month or two, getting brand recognition is very hard, but within a month or two, the client said, oh, we don't like this commercial. We want to shut it down. We want a new approach. And we were like, what happened? So what happened was their expectation is dollar sign. They want to see revenue. So that means that, if we know that, we may do something different. But name recognition was what we think is one of the most difficult things when you're in advertisement, to get your name all of a sudden known, right? So that's what I meant by we didn't have alignment. We didn't kind of agree on what does success mean. And they want to measure by dollar sign. We want to measure by brand recognition. So that's another thing, that you just make sure that you have buy-in from the leaders, the stakeholders, that everybody is aligned on the same page.
Just because what you're studying in college is not necessarily what you're going to be doing 20-ish years later. As I said, I started my career in politics and as a political science major, thinking I was going to go to law school, and now I'm a CEO of a quantum company. So just keep an open mind. But as far as getting internships are a great way to get subject matter expertise. It's also a great way to try out things that you think that you're going to like and not like. So for instance, I knew a friend who really wanted to go work in finance. So they took their freshman year of college, an internship on Wall Street, and had the worst summer of their lives. They hated what they did. But then with a finance degree,
Fail fast.
Exactly. But then with a finance degree, they still knew that they liked finance, so they were trying to figure out what they could do. And so the next summer they did an internship at a nonprofit with a large nonprofit in the CFO's office, and they loved it. So using your internship to not only gain some expertise, but to think about what you want and what you don't want is really some of the major advice that I would give, and not to necessarily just marry yourself to what you think you love right now.
One, work really hard. Two, have a really open mind to the pathway that might take you to the top, or wherever you want to go. And because you just don't know, I think the foundation of hard work and how that then translates into some results that then people see and they go, hey, now we've got another thing over here, and hey, would you be interested in working on that for us? And those things then will start to take care of themselves in terms of opportunities you'll be presented with through your career. And then the third is, figure out what makes you happy. And I think, one of the things that I probably didn't get great advice on, or insight around when I was starting out. I'm lucky. I loved being a marketer, and I found it very pleasurable. But I have a number of friends who, in what they studied, they were absolutely great, and they went into the workplace and they were fantastic as accountants or strategists, or in HR or different parts of a business. But it wasn't their passion in life. It wasn't what made them happy. And I think, the great thing about university is you have this wonderful time relatively early in life to actually, and at UQ, there's so many schools that if you can try a range of things to figure out what actually do you really enjoy. And it may be at uni, it may be something outside. I don't know. But, I think you're going to spend a good amount of time in Korea working. And so you can either hopefully, you know, I think the ideal is to be able to spend as much of that actually working at something that you really enjoy. And if you end up finding yourself in a place working on stuff you don't like, then be brave enough to go, hey, and honest enough with yourself to go, hey, this is not for me. There's tons of other things you can try, and figure out what that is. And, you know, I think you'll then end up, again, happy people, engaged people. It's very easy to spot people who aren't happy as an employer, and it's really easy to spot people who actually really love doing what they're doing and are in a good spot, and that a job is something that they take pride and pleasure and enjoyment and fulfillment from. And because of that, that motivation makes hard work easier, makes, you know, so all of those things that positively feed that, whether you're working for yourself or you're working for someone else, you know, are going to be setting you on a pathway to a working life that you're probably going to enjoy. And if you're going to enjoy your working life, then you're probably going to have a better chance of enjoying home life and other dimensions of your life as well. You know, as you kind of find balance across your living and your lifestyles.